size bed was an escape plan.
Hello and welcome. We are the Aussie Guys. I'm AJ in Aussie Guys Studio, still on my own. G is on holidays in Austria right now, mountain biking in the Austrian Alps. But I'm today going to do my Chargers preview. Going to get hold of two of the guys from Locked On Chargers. David we spoke to last couple of years, and we've also got John joining us. The Locked On Chargers, well, the Locked On Network is fantastic. If you don't listen to your own team on the Locked On Network, I'd encourage you to. But Locked On Chargers at Locked On LAC, and these guys also do the Chargers Domination podcast or Chargers Domination Live, which you can follow at Chargers Dom Pod. But let's get the guys on the line and talk LA Chargers. Okay, we've got John and Dave on the line. Thanks, guys, for joining me. And I was just saying off air, I'm enjoying your content on Locked On Chargers, guys. You're absolutely killing it.
Hey, thank you so much, man. We've been doing it the last couple of years, and it's really been a lot of fun. I mean, like we were talking before we started recording. John and I was doing Chargers Domination Live for a couple of years before we started Locked On, and we were just doing that because we love to talk about football and we love to talk about Chargers football. And now, we get to do that for Locked On Chargers, and we get to do it on a daily basis, and we get paid for it. So really, it's been kind of a dream come true.
Nice. So listen, let's talk Chargers. There's a lot to talk about, and I mean, a lot to get excited about as well. And obviously, 2018 was a super exciting year. 12-4, losing in the divisional round to New England. New England.
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, were you? Man. Oh, that was such a disappointing game.
Yeah, 37 degrees, no jacket, watching us go down 35-7 before halftime, getting yelled at by Patriot fans. Not fun.
Man, and we got absolutely run over. But interesting, I mean, there's some things we'll talk about in that regard anyway, but as longtime Charger fans, something that we know all too well is the Chargers' seeming ability to kind of harpoon their season before it begins, or have key injuries, or during the season, bonehead plays that kind of harpoon, scuttle everything. But last year was a pretty good year on that front, apart from obviously the hiccup at the beginning with Hunter Henry. But then it was like we had it all out of our system and we were pretty much healthy the way through.
Yeah, I mean, besides the injury to Joey Bosa and that ongoing saga, the Chargers were very healthy last year. I mean, they did really well. And, did the Chargers have a tendency to charger? Yes, obviously. They would lose in the most absolutely insane ways. And we're like, when they have 99.9% chance to win and they literally snatch defeat between the jaws of victory, it just, it made us, that year when they were doing it, it just said, hey, they're charging. They got that figured out last year. They won the close games. They, stopped people when they needed to. They made the aggressive calls when the aggressive calls were the right calls to make. So, yeah, they had a great year overall. But, the difference between a good team and a great team is winning those close games. And the Chargers did that a lot more last season than they have the past 5 years combined.
I'm not writing it off, though. I'm not writing it off because they won those games in bad ways. There was games where we were winning pretty well. Like, we looked like we could have blown the game away. And then next thing you know, the Titans are trying to go for a 2-point conversion. That would have won the game. There's the Steelers game where we kept missing field goals, even though the Steelers kept jumping upside, giving us more chances. The 49ers game, missing extra points. There was so many chances that we should have lost, and we reluctantly didn't. So I'm not writing it off as the Chargers didn't charge. They did. We just happened to win in the process somehow. The football gods, if you will, were on our side.
Yeah, and the coach is an important factor in that. And we've certainly had good coaches and terrible coaches, right? And after a bit of maybe a rocky start, it feels like Anthony Lynn is the guy. Well, at least for now, he's certainly the guy. And, having Whisenhunt and Bradley as your coordinators certainly helps. Two super experienced guys. But how are you feeling about Anthony Lynn and the coaching staff?
Well, I mean, personally, I love Anthony Lynn. I mean, he's the type of coach that you respect because he's been there. He played in the league. He was a running back. He's won Super Bowls, so he knows what it's like to win. And he's that type of guy and that coach that demands respect from his players, and he gets it because of the way he carries himself, how he leads. Players love Anthony Lynn, and because they'll run through a brick wall for that guy. And I know you hear that a lot, but I truly believe that. And honestly, the big thing that was missing between the last couple of head coaches and Anthony Lynn is discipline. Anthony Lynn's a hard-nosed coach that likes to get things done and do your work. But a lot of the times we saw a lot of laziness, a lot of players on the field that were out of shape or not doing what they're supposed to do. And that's not going to cut it under Anthony Lynn. He's not going to deal with those type of problems. So his team was very well disciplined, very well coached. And yeah, does it help to have two other experienced head coaches in the NFL to help you out? Absolutely. So John, I love Anthony Lynn so far. What do you think about Anthony Lynn so far with his tenure as the Chargers head coach?
I think the thing with Anthony Lynn is he doesn't try to also be a position coach. So if you look at guys like Norv Turner had some discipline in him, but he was also trying to be the offensive coordinator, and stuff like that doesn't work well. And also he had A.J. Smith as his general manager, who was getting rid of all of his talent. So, I mean, that doesn't help. I personally didn't think Norv Turner was that bad of a coach because when he had the talent, he was winning. We won 3 straight AFC West championships with him, and even when he got his whole team together and it wasn't Marty's team no more, they went 13-3, and then there goes Vincent Jackson and all these guys. There goes LT. They're all leaving because of A.J. Smith. But when Mike McCoy came, he was trying to be the player's friend, and that right there is what you cannot do. You cannot be the player's friend. You got to be that father figure to the player to make them better themselves, and that's what Anthony Lynn does. And that's what a head coach does. Head coach is the guy that does that. He needs to stick to that. He needs to let offensive coordinator be the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator be the defensive coordinator, position coaches be position coaches. Anthony Lynn is the head coach only, and I think that's what the difference is with him. He actually takes control of the team and not one side of the ball. Now, with Gus Bradley and his defense, he needs to maybe plan it out a little bit better when he plays the big teams. But, yeah, having the guy that's won the Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator, it helps a lot with that part of it. Now we have a really good defense coming into the league with an offensive line that sucks. So that's going to be the big thing for this team. Because you saw the Broncos, they won with just defense with an injured Peyton Manning. Trevor Siemian was the quarterback. Or Brock Osweiler, was the quarterback. And it looked like crap, yet they still won the Super Bowl.
Well, listen, let's talk a little bit about free agency to start off with, and then we'll talk about the draft. But first of all, the movement in and out of the building, which, there was a couple of names that I was a little bit, it was... But Tyrell Williams, we were never going to hang on to. That guy was going to get paid somewhere. Jason Verrett, he just couldn't stay healthy, to be honest. Jaleel Adai, similar kind of problem.
Yeah, good riddance.
Yeah, that's right. And Tyrod Taylor, now, let's hope he never sees the field, but, man, the value in having a backup quarterback like Tyrod, and he looked fantastic in that first preseason game. He looked sharp.
Honestly, what I saw in Tyrod was what I expected. I've followed him since he was at Virginia Tech when he had, like, Ryan Williams and all those weapons around him. He's the guy that you saw is what he's always been. The fact that he made Buffalo go to the playoff just shows you how valuable that guy could be. So I wasn't surprised at what he showed, really. But if Rivers goes down, we all have confidence that we have someone that can step up. We don't have a Geno Smith or a Brad Sorensen or someone like that. This is probably the first backup quarterback that we can rely on since Billy Bullock, personally.
Yeah, quite right. We also added Thomas Davis, who, is getting on in years, but, I mean, probably something that our linebacker core needed, an experienced hand in there because we were looking a little bit thin.
Well, I love the addition of Thomas Davis because not only does he bring that leadership aspect, because he's going to hold his guys accountable. That's for sure. That's just the type of man that he is. But he might be advanced in age, but he's still playing at a very high level. He's still able to cover guys. that are half his age, pretty much. I mean, there's a play in practice against the Rams when they're doing the joint practice where he was running stride for stride with Cooper Kupp. That's a wide receiver. Okay. And, I want to point that out because Thomas Davis is 36 years old. He should not be able to be running stride for stride with receivers that are in their early 20s. That's just kind of gives you an idea that this guy still has the ability to be an all-field type of linebacker, a guy that can provide you some good quality run support, and the guy who doesn't have to be taken off the field because he's a pass coverage liability. He can do that too. So obviously, after last year, playing the Patriots, having to play zone because they had no linebacker depth, that was a huge point of emphasis this offseason. They went to get Thomas Davis. They picked up a couple linebackers in the draft. They said they were not going to be put in that position again where they have to play zone against a zone killer. So I think they strategically made sure that linebacker depth was not going to be a problem going into this season.
Yeah, let's add the draft picks in there because I love the draft. Interested to get your take on it. Actually, I kind of have heard it, but let's revisit it. I mean, I love the draft picks. Jerry Tillery, fantastic pick, man. That guy is good. Nasir Adderley, one of the best safeties in the class and fantastic addition. Trey Pipkins, I don't know a lot about, but I was pumped for the Drew Tranquil pick. He's going to get snaps for sure, be in the rotation. And Easton Stick, before I hit record, we were talking briefly, and man, I was hoping for Will Grier. The Panthers picked him up sort of like, what? That was like one of those picks is just like, huh? But, maybe they've got issues of their own keeping Cam healthy. So, but Easton Stick, it's not bad. You get a developmental guy every year or two and just see what happens with him. It's not a bad pick in that sense. But how did you guys feel about the Chargers draft?
I like most of the picks. With Jerry Tillery and Nasir Adderley, they were really good. My only issue with Adderley was he's a speedy guy who already had a injury during the combine, I think it was, or the pro day. It was one of those. I think it was the pro day for Delaware, and now he has another hamstring injury. So my worries were kind of up there, but I was willing to take the risk for the talent because you needed another safety. With Tillery, is the same. It was the same thing. It was coming off that shoulder surgery. Was he going to be ready for training camp? We still have to see that, but he's worth the risk in my mind because you also got a guy in Cortez Broughton in the 7th round who could also be that really good defensive tackle, that shoot the gap kind of guy that'll penetrate the gap, even though in the first game of the preseason he looked a little bit slow off the ball. So hopefully that's just him trying to adjust to the league. And the Easton Stick, I had him in my mock draft, and what I saw in this guy when I scouted him was this is a guy who was really good in the pocket. He even had the stats to prove it, the QBR to prove it. He was really good in the pocket, but could also run if he needed to. He was 49-3, I think it was, at North Dakota State, won the championship a few times. It was also Carson Wentz is backup, so there's probably a line of excellence going on there. You see what Carson Wentz doing, so maybe Easton Stick could be the future if you develop him in time. So there's a lot of things in there that I saw just for that alone. The pick that bothers the crap out of me is Trey Pipkins. I hated that pick. You could have got him somewhere else. There's no way anybody was looking at a guy from Sioux Falls in the 3rd round. You could have got so much better. The Chargers' 3rd round picks are just killing me the past 3 years. I know David can agree with me on this. We are really bad at 3rd round picks, but we're really great at 5th round picks. And Easton Stick was that 5th round pick. So fingers crossed that's our future.
Yeah, no, I have absolutely no idea what happened in the 3rd round. I mean, it was like round 1. Okay, awesome. That's actually the guy I wanted. Round 2. Oh, man, that's a 1st-round talent we got in the 2nd round. Awesome. 3rd round. What the hell? Who the hell is Sioux Falls? Where is that? I mean, it's just like, we had absolutely no idea about this guy. Apparently, he showed out in the senior game, was it? Yeah, anyway, he showed out there in front of the Chargers coaches, and they were coaching that event. And so, yeah, apparently they liked the raw tools. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's got prototypical size. He's got good length. He's just super raw. Then in the 4th round, you're like, okay, man, that's another great pick. Drew Tranquil. Really versatile linebacker, former safety, run around, make plays. And he was absolutely everywhere in the preseason game. I mean, man, he was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Fifth round, Easton Stick, okay. Sixth round, you got another linebacker, Emeka Egbule, which after reviewing his tape, I liked his tape. I thought he's a good physical player. And then the seventh round, you get Cortez Broughton, another defensive lineman, to add to that rotation. And you're like, okay. So as a whole, the draft was phenomenal. I think they got some really great starters and depth pieces. And then you get that what the hell in the middle. But obviously the jury is still out on the draft. I mean, I don't like to, really give initial grades because they haven't done anything in the league. So give them a couple years, let them show us why they got drafted or show us why they shouldn't have been drafted. So the jury is definitely out.
The Emeka Egbule, man, we might have a little hidden gem with that guy. This is a guy who's a linebacker, but they've thrown him way out there to cover receivers and stuff. Man, this guy, the Chargers really love to find these hybrids that could be a linebacker or a DB. Like it's like those hybrid athletic linebackers. The Chargers love those guys, and we got a few of those with Tranquill and Egbule. But I want to give a shout out real quick to our other co-host, Daniel Wade, who's not on here, who actually predicted us getting Cortez Broughton in this draft. And it was even really high on him when we were going over him on the Locked On show. So good call, Daniel. You're not here. You can't argue with me.
Wow, that's impressive. Late draft prediction. I mean, throw a dart, with a blindfold. It's hard. Well, listen, let's start looking at the offense, and there's not a lot we really need to say about Phil Rivers. 4,308 yards, 32 touchdowns, 12 interceptions last year. His completion percentage, 68.3, was his second best of his career, and yards per attempt, 8.5, was the third best of his career, which, Ken Wisenhunt has been an absolute boon for Philip Rivers, for sure. He turns 38 in December, and, he's a pocket passer, and as we said before we hit record, we were talking about how tough he really is. He doesn't get the love, really, from the national media for that, or even just really for his play. He's, super underrated. How long do you think he plays, guys? And, what about Hall of Fame? That's the question. If he wins a Super Bowl, let's hope he does. Let's hope he wins a couple.
Yeah.
Then write it in ink, no problem. But without that,
does it get in?
Yes.
The answer for me is yes. I think it's Hall of Fame, not Hall of Champions, first and foremost. So was Philip Rivers one of the best quarterbacks of his generation? The numbers say resoundingly yes. He absolutely was. He's put up 4,000 yards 10 plus times, 30 touchdowns, around 10 plus times. I mean, he has single-handedly kept the Chargers franchise in the thick of things throughout his career. I think whether or not he wins a Super Bowl or not, and hopefully he does, to cement it to where there's no question, I personally believe he's absolutely a Hall of Famer. His numbers are up there in the top 10 of the quarterback position at pretty much every statistical category. So, like I said, Hall of Fame, he definitely will get in. I think there's no question whether he wins a championship or not.
I would have to say he's definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think he's first round ballot. If he makes the first round ballot Hall of Fame list, I will be shocked just because he hasn't won the Super Bowl. He hasn't been able to somehow, some way step up in the playoffs like he does in the regular season. But during the regular season, he has the numbers, he has the plays, he has the highlight film that says, hey, this guy is a Hall of Famer. Even when this team has been really, really bad and had a lot of really bad players on here, or even a bunch of guys that were third stringers somewhere else, Rivers somehow puts up the numbers, gets the wins, or at least keeps you in the game. There was that one season he completed a pass to 12 or 13 different players because everyone was getting hurt.
Right.
In 2010, we had Patrick Creighton catching passes, Darren Sproles, everybody somehow was catching a pass from him, and Rivers was winning games with that. I don't see that many players that are even Hall of Fame worthy that can do that. Aaron Rodgers even struggled last year without having, the greatest talent around him, or the head coach messed with him. Even with the head coach being bad, Rivers was still putting up numbers. It's amazing what he does. If he doesn't make the Hall of Fame, then that's being snubbed.
Yeah, I think it would be an absolute travesty. But to answer your other question, how many more years are we going to see Phillip Rivers? In my estimation, and also from what I've heard and reports have said, that he absolutely wants to play in a new stadium without question. So I think, that and within itself is probably going to guarantee at least 2. I'm going to go 3. I think he's going to play 3 more seasons after this one, and then he's going to hang him up. Hopefully, that will add a Super Bowl championship to his resume. So the Hall of Fame question is completely answered definitively. But, yeah, I think we're going to see at least 3 more seasons out of Phillip Rivers.
I have a worry because the NFL lockout could be coming up. And as David mentioned, Rivers wants to play in that new stadium. And the year the stadium comes up, either that year or the year after it is going to be the lockout. So there's going to be some interesting things that go on around that time that could influence Rivers' decision if the new CBA is not signed. So if the CBA is signed, I like David's pick. I think Rivers plays 3 more years, but if it's not, he'll be lucky to do 2 years because he might lose any motivation to do it if he has to take a whole year off because of a holdout.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, let's see what happens. It's certainly going to be interesting times ahead, but let's go to the elephant in the room. And that elephant's Melvin Gordon.
That was the opposite.
Oh, is there another elephant?
Left tackle, but let's definitely get to Melvin Gordon.
Left tackle, yes. Well, the O-line, but yeah, look, let's talk Melvin Gordon. And I'll put my cards on the table in that I love the guy, but man, this is just such a bonehead move. Like, he just doesn't have any leverage, it seems, and certainly when we see the play of the first preseason game, Ekeler and Jackson looked fantastic. And you feel that, well, certainly I feel Ekeler plus Jackson pretty much does Gordon.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people out there that would agree with you. But one thing that happened in that preseason game that strengthened Melvin Gordon's case is Austin Ekeler fumbling at the 2-yard line. That is something Melvin Gordon has not done at all since his rookie season. He has 0 fumbles after year 1. And, we know he gets into the end zone. Melvin Gordon has scored the second amount of touchdowns the past 4 years under only Todd Gurley. I believe it's somewhere around 38 touchdowns. So he scores, and he does not fumble. So as soon as that happened, I was like, that definitely works in the favor of Melvin Gordon. But you're absolutely right. Austin Ekeler, besides that little blemish, or a large blemish, however you want to think about it, he was phenomenal. He's cutting in and out of the defenses, moving down the field with ease. Justin Jackson running a guy over at the end before the goal line to get in the end zone to score a 4-yard touchdown. Definitely a lot of ability there. And, I mean, the argument is so strong against paying a running back, high amount of dollars, because their shelf life is shorter than a normal NFL player's short life, or a shelf life, excuse me. NFL players normally in the league 3, maybe 4 years if they're lucky. The shelf life for a running back is much shorter. And also, there's a lot more guys you can find throughout the draft and in free agency, in many cases have shown up and produced immediately. Also, hey, Austin Ekeler, Western Colorado State, undrafted free agent. I mean, wow, that's a diamond in the rough. And hey, Justin Jackson, a 7th-round pick. I mean, you're absolutely right. You can find production anywhere. So, and you said no leverage. 100% agree. He has no leverage because the play of the running backs that are in the building, he's under contract. He wants 13 to 15 million per year, but his stats and his injury history is showing why the Chargers are not wanting to give him that money. Now, if you ask John, you're going to know exactly how he feels on the situation.
I want to trade Melvin Gordon. I want to trade him and get an offensive lineman and a draft pick for him. And I think getting an offensive lineman will strengthen the offensive line for Justin Jackson and Austin Ekeler. I believe Justin Jackson will easily be the one back, with Ekeler being the change of pace back. And you can maybe use Detrez Newsome as that 2-back, the guy that comes in for Justin Jackson's breather, if you will. And I think we would be just fine with that, as long as you're not using Austin Ekeler at the goal line. I was honestly surprised they were using him at the goal line in the preseason. I mean, yeah, it's preseason, but that's not Eckler's strength. Justin Jackson does way better at the goal line. Eckler has fumbling issues. Melvin Gordon almost fumbled at the goal line against the Ravens, but the ball just passed the goal line just in time. So he was lucky he didn't fumble in the clutch, or else there would even be more against him. But with Melvin Gordon's injury history and the fact that we were 4-0 without him last year, he does not deserve $13 million a year. He's not Le'Veon Bell. He's not David Johnson. Yeah, he's got some touchdown stats, but Phillip Rivers helped him get those touchdown stats. Phillip Rivers drove the ball down the field and then gave it to him inside the 5-yard line for most of those touchdowns. Yeah, he has a 85 or 87-yard touchdown, a 34-yard touchdown last year that he got against Seattle, but most of his touchdowns are from inside the 5-yard line. It's not like he's breaking off runs like LT used to, where you'd see a 40-yard touchdown here and a 30-yard touchdown here. He's not that kind of guy, so he doesn't need $13 million a year. He got offered $10 million a year, and he turned it down. It's greed. He does not need that. So if you trade him, you can increase your cap space, gain an offensive lineman from the team, and maybe sign another offensive lineman in free agency with that cap space. That's my plan.
Very true. And, you know, I don't know how Tom Telesco would be looking forward, of course. That's his job. I mean, this upcoming draft class is absolutely stacked with really talented running backs. And, you know, we could potentially get a guy like LaShawn McCoy or someone like that in for a year, which I'd be pumped about. I mean, Eckler and Jackson is fine, but there are veteran guys out there we could easily add, you know.
Yeah, no question. That's why I said, I mean, it's really easy to find production from the running back position. We're really wherever. I mean, and the Chargers are notorious for finding those diamonds in the rough, whether it be in the draft or through undrafted or in free agency via undrafted free agents. I mean, an undrafted free agent has made the Chargers roster every year for the past 20 plus years. So they have an incredible scouting department. Obviously, it's shown with all of the great players that they've been able to find. So, yeah, I'm not, you know, after the whole Melvin Gordon thing, I'm not really a huge believer anymore of drafting running backs super high, just because you can find the replacement value literally anywhere.
Right. Well, listen, let's go across to, and we'll put wide receiver and tight end together. Let's just talk about the receiving core. Obviously, the 1-2, I mean, really, one of the best 1-2s in the league. You could easily say that with Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams, who's coming on strong, should have a really amazing year. And Hunter Henry, fantastic to see him healthy. And, I shouldn't say stuff like that, touch wood, in the first preseason game. And those are really the top three. But, I mean, the main concern for me is the depth in the wide receiver core. I'm not a massive rap for Travis Benjamin. Obviously, losing Tyrell Williams is
neither are we.
Yeah, is a loss. I was really high on Dylan Cantrell, and I don't know what his situation is. I think he's on IR or he's been waived, one of the two. But
He's been waived.
Has he?
He's gone.
Yeah,
I was hoping that he was. Yeah, I felt like it was a bit of an opportunity for him maybe to rise up the depth chart, but it doesn't seem like Tom Telesco agrees. But anyway, what are your thoughts, guys, in terms of the, you know, who is behind Allen and Williams?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, yeah, it is Travis Benjamin, like John said. I mean, I think definitely the number three. And throughout camp, I mean, that's how he has been positioned, and that's really how he's actually made plays. According to people who have visited camp, he looked pretty decent. But, you know, I'm very skeptical on Travis Benjamin. Obviously, he's made a lot of bonehead mistakes, and he's afraid of contact because he's like 150 pounds soaking wet. Right. But, you know, he's extremely fast, and when he does run straight and he catches the ball, he can make some crazy things happen. But behind that, I think John will agree that the next guy on the list is probably Artavis Scott.
It's between Artavis Scott and Jeremy Davis. It's one of those two guys. In the preseason, Artavis Scott didn't really show up. I was expecting him to really catch passes and try to demonstrate himself. He didn't really show up much in the first preseason game, but Jeremy Davis has been there longer, so I think he has the slight leverage, but I think Artavis Scott is the better receiver. So it's going to be between one of those two guys, but you can probably see other guys like Jason Moore and those guys maybe stepping up. Jason Moore had some pretty crazy stats at Findlay, which is not a great college to reference, but he had like 29 touchdowns in 2 years, and about like 2,900 receiving yards, I think it was. And Andre Patton is a guy I'm looking to see maybe try to sneak up on people. He's not the greatest guy, but I just feel every preseason he's gotten a little bit better, and he might be pulling one of those, like he sneaks in with these couple of highlight plays and they go, you know what, that's the guy that's making this team, and then he shows up and he's Brian Walters and does nothing.
Oh God. And also, you talked about Hunter Henry being back, and I have to tell you, while we're talking about this group, he's looked absolutely phenomenal in the preseason game. He was doing things that we saw him do when he was healthy, and that's going to help this team. I mean, that's going to open up the middle of the field. It's going to open up the wide receivers on the outside. It's going to make things easier for everybody to have a young, spry, and healthy, knock on wood, Hunter Henry, and hopefully he stays that way. Because, I mean, when Hunter Henry is involved in the game and he's catching passes, the Chargers win. And I think we saw that a lot when he was healthy. So hopefully we get a really good, strong, healthy year out of Hunter Henry. And I'd be really excited to see where his stats look like if he plays 16 games this year and he is a focal point like he should be. He should put up some crazy numbers.
Yeah, but if you're looking at the depth of this tight end group, the next guy up is Virgil Green, the guy that we're not really confident in when it comes to pass catching. He's a great run blocker, not at pass catching. And I'm thinking Antonio Gates is probably going to get signed after training camp's over. There's still rumors that it's going to happen. I think it is going to happen. After Virgil Green, it's going to be Sean Culkin probably that gets that nod if Gates is not signed. And the guy that I was really high on that I thought maybe could sneak in on this roster ahead of Sean Culkin was Andrew Vollert, who's a guy who is really good after the catch and can catch some deep passes. He could be, I would say, a toned-down version of Hunter Henry, but he just tore his ACL and he's done for the year.
It's terrible. Feel awful for the guy.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're okay with the Melvin Gordon situation because we've got it covered, but as we alluded to before, the other elephant, it's actually a much more serious elephant, is the O-line.
Very.
And, when you're lost in the dark, it's handy to have a lamp, but we need a floodlight.
Yes, sir. And we love lamp.
Yes. So, there are massive questions. Obviously, Russell Okung, I don't know if when he's coming back, obviously what happened with him was, he could have died. Literally.
No, absolutely. He was having some chest pains. And normally, if it was a regular person, we probably would, probably try to self-medicate or, just, shush it away like it's nothing. But he went to the doctor, and the doctor basically told him that it's a good thing that you came and see me, because if not, you definitely could have died. So unfortunately, the doctors found out that Russell Okung had a pulmonary embolism, which basically came from the issue of blood clots. And blood clots are very, very dangerous, and they have killed a lot of people throughout the years. So the fact that he did seek medical attention when he did probably saved his life, John.
And if not killing him, it saved his arm or something. If you get a blood clot, you're probably going to lose a limb, because a blood clot is basically clogging your arteries and not allowing blood to get somewhere, which means muscle death. And if you have muscle death that can't be reversed, you got to cut off that arm or that leg or whatever. So if it wasn't death, it was definitely his career that was going to be done if he didn't go to the hospital.
Yeah, so scary, scary stuff there with Russell Okung. But as far as when is he going to return, that's all up to the doctors. As soon as he gets cleared, then he can come back. But, everything I'm hearing is that it's probably likely that he's going to miss the start of the season. I'm hoping that he avoids the PUP list, but, we'll see. It's obviously his health is first and foremost, but that means that there's a gigantic problem on the offensive line, because your best offensive lineman from a year ago is now in a lot of jeopardy and a lot of trouble. So you don't know who's going to step up They have Trent Scott over there at left tackle right now, and it absolutely scares the hell out of you because, oh man, Trent Scott's a backup, and you're trying to protect your hopefully Hall of Fame quarterback's blindside. So it's absolutely frightening for Charger fans going into the season.
And I guess, add to that we don't really know who Forrest Lamp is. We hope he's going to be the player we think he is, but we kind of need to find that out. And then, Sam Tevy on the other end, man, Pouncey, Feeney and Schofield, it's not brilliant.
Well, I think Forrest Lamp actually got a lot of playing time in the first preseason game in Feeney's position.
Right.
I didn't even really see Feeney play that much in left guard. It was all Forrest Lamp, and then they brought Feeney in to play center. And Lamp did not look that bad. I mean, he didn't look the greatest, but he didn't look that bad. He was holding his own pretty well. There was a few hiccups that he had, but I mean, it's his first real game action, so I'm not surprised that he had a few hiccups, but he looked pretty decent. The guy that looked like crap was Trey Pipkins, who was missing everything. There's even a video that was sent to us by one of our Locked On listeners who sent us a video of Trey Pipkins literally walking past his assignment that was coming through the line.
Unbelievable.
And I'm like, really? Like, I saw the other ones, but I didn't get that view that he sent us of it. And it made it look even worse. But he was missing so many assignments. There was one time where a guy literally chopped Trey Pipkins' hand down and just went past him. And I'm like, dude, you just got bullied. It was like taking your lunch money and saying, see ya. Like, he needs a lot of work.
It's hard to know what this is going to be like. We'll hope for best case scenario that they can be, maybe close to average, but it's not looking really good.
I mean, that
looked pretty decent in the first game.
No, it's not looking good.
Pretty well.
Yeah,
but consider the competition and the people they're going up against. I mean, a lot of the starters didn't even play, but yeah, the offensive line. When you look at this team, you see Super Bowl potential. I say that wholeheartedly, but the big problem and the big question is that offensive line. I think, we'll switch over to the defense here shortly, but the defense is absolutely stacked. The offense has a lot of weapons, but if you can't keep 17 clean, nobody's going to get the ball.
No, exactly. Well, listen, let's switch across to the defense because, as you said, they're stacked from front to back, but let's start at the front. Joey Bosa, let's see a healthy season all the way through, and it's kind of ironic to see the injury to Nick Bosa. You sort of wonder what's going on with the Bosa DNA, but let's hope he can be healthy all the way through. But him and Melvin Ingram, I mean, you could make an argument for they're the best, pair, the best edge rushing pair in the league. You could make that argument quite easily. And then Brandon Mebane, and you add Jerry Tillery to that. That'll be a fantastic front. Yeah,
no, even got guys like Justin Jones, who's supposedly looking decent in the offseason. And John will tell you he's definitely been his biggest critic since he was drafted. A lot of questions on him, but seems like he might be answering some of those questions. But obviously, we'll have to see when the real games start to come on. But I think there's a lot more depth this year than there has been in previous years. You bring in Jerry Tillery, who can hopefully provide some interior pass rush, which is something the Chargers have lacked the last several years. It'd be really, really interesting to see someone be able to push the pocket and collapse it from the middle while you got Bosa and Ingram coming from the other sides. I mean, that is a recipe for disaster for quarterbacks and a recipe for success for the Chargers and their defense going to this year. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. I would love to see a full season healthy out of Joey Bosa, and I'd be really interested to see what those sack numbers look like if he played a 16-game season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not really a criticism, but I mean, Bosa and Ingram, they do what they do extremely well, but they're not really trying to tackle the ball carrier, They've got eyes for the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Joey Bosa is actually a pretty darn good run defender, and I think Melvin Ingram doesn't get nearly enough credit for all the dirty work that he does. He takes up a lot of double teams. He does a lot of nitty-gritty dirty work in the run game, and I think that's not sexy. That's not getting after quarterback. That's not the stuff that people say, oh, wow, that's phenomenal. But it's something that's very, very important. And, yeah, I think when Joey was hurt last year, all the attention goes where? To the next best pass rusher, obviously, and that's Melvin Ingram. So I think that took a lot of his effectiveness away. And so having Joey Bosa back where, some of that attention can be taken away from them, and they can also put together some pretty awesome NASCAR packages with, Uchenna Nwosu, who's another guy who can really get after the quarterback. I mean, I think they can really have some fun if they have all of their chess pieces available, John.
They could. We could easily get a bunch of high sack numbers and stuff, but I think the thing that most people don't realize with Bosa and Ingram is they set the edge, which is something a lot of defensive coordinators would tell you. You got to have someone that sets the edge, because if the running back gets outside, now he has room to run. Now he has cutback lanes. He has a lot of this stuff. If you keep them inside the tackles, your linebackers can come and clean up the mess. In the last 2 years, we haven't really had that linebacker that comes and cleans up the mess. But now Perryman, now that he's back, he's the guy that can do that, but he's always injured. Thomas Davis is here. Uchenna Nwosu is really good at moving around and finding a hole. You see how well he does it in the pass rush game. So you now have guys that can actually stuff the hole and tackle the running back. So with Bosa and Ingram, or even if it's Isaac Rochelle didn't do that bad at setting the edge either. He just wasn't the greatest at getting after the quarterback every time. But as long as you set the edge, the linebackers can fill the holes. And I think that's something we targeted in the offseason was the linebacker core. And I think the run game will improve greatly this year with just that aspect alone. But one injury can ruin everything.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, you already sort of mentioned the addition of Thomas Davis kind of targeting that run-stuffing ability in the middle there. Uchenna Nwosu and Denzel Perryman, it's a solid grouping in the middle there. But that was the thing that killed us in that playoff game was just the Patriots just ran all over us at will. So it does. Well, it looks much, much better.
Well, yeah, they did what they wanted because, you played zone, and Tom Brady is notorious for just destroying zone coverage. If you don't play man every once in a while, then you're just gonna get sliced and diced, and that's exactly what they did. And the Chargers had to play zone out of necessity. They played the best personnel that they had, and unfortunately, that wasn't good enough to get it done. But they noticed that flaw and that issue, and it's good to know that they saw it as well, and they did what they could to address that issue.
I feel it was more conservative. I don't think Gus Bradley was very confident in his own team. I mean, can you blame him? Not really. But at the same time, it's your team. You got to put the talent in the best situation to win. And I think if you would have played some press man coverage and make Brady throw a bunch of perfect passes, which he can do, but it has been shown that if you force Brady to try to throw the perfect pass, he sometimes will mess up. And after that, you just got to force a four-man front with maybe one guy blitzing to get after Brady and make him step out of his rhythm. And we couldn't do that. If you have a four-man rush that can get after Brady, that's what makes you win the games, because then guys don't have time to get to their spots. Where if you play zone with a four-man rush, it takes like 3 seconds and a guy is sitting in a little bit bubble somewhere in the middle of the field going, hey, Brady, I'm right here. Yep, got it, 10 yards. No problem.
Let's talk about the defensive backfield because it's absolutely stacked. And Derwin James obviously loved that guy. I used to watch Landon Collins fly around the field in the Giants' backfield and think, man, I'd love to have a guy like Landon Collins on our team. Bingo. Now we do. My word. Casey Hayward. I mean, the only question for me is really the guy opposite Casey Hayward. But Casey Hayward, awesome. Desmond King, Adrian Phillips, I'm a big rap for. It's just Michael Davis, Trevor Williams on the other side. But, I mean, across the back there, it's really good as a whole.
Oh, yeah. I mean, wow. I mean, Derwin James, honestly, and I hope people don't eat me alive for this comp, but when I saw Derwin James last year, it kind of reminded me of Sean Taylor. Just the way he was running around and annihilate people and just be able to do everything on the football field. He can Derwin James can rush the passer. He can play deep. He can play in the box. He's a good tackler. He makes interceptions. He gets sacks. The guy is literally a do-it-all safety, and that's what I saw Sean Taylor be for the Redskins. He was an absolutely phenomenal player. And I'm not and trust me, Derwin James has a couple of years to go to stack on top of that before he comes close to his status. But sure. I'm just saying that the archetype of player that Derwin James is, I think a lot of his traits match up. But yeah, the defense is the secondary is phenomenal. It's super stacked. And honestly, I'm not as worried about Michael Davis as I was because, and we talk about this ad nauseum on our show, both Chargers Domination Live and Locked On Chargers. His biggest problem was he just didn't turn his head around and look for the football. So he got flagged all day long. Michael Davis has the size and the speed to run with anybody. He absolutely does. He just did not turn his head around for 14 games of the season last year. As soon as he started to do that, he was a much better corner. He's always been a great tackler, a good in run support. His biggest issue was literally as simple as looking for the football. As soon as he started to do that, he was a much, much better corner. But that's I think one of the biggest battles in camp, John, is that who's going to be that corner beside on the other side of Casey Hayward? Is it going to be Trevor Williams coming back from injury, or is Michael Davis going to keep that spot that he earned towards the end of last year?
It is definitely the biggest camp battle in that position, and you wouldn't expect there to be that kind of battle right there. You'd be more worried about, okay, is it Rayshawn Jenkins or Nazir Adderley for safety? But it's Michael Davis versus Trevor Williams. Trevor Williams was looking pretty good when he played, and then he got hurt, and Michael Davis had to play. And as David mentioned, he would never turn his head around. He was getting beat or he was getting flagged. But once he turned his head around, it was like he magnetically stayed with some receiver and just watched that ball and knocked it down, like stride for stride with the receiver knocking the ball down once he turned his head around. It was night and day. And so now was Michael Davis a fluke? Was he just becoming pretty good for a little while? Was turning his head around just also a fluke? Like he happened to become good at the same time he turned his head around. Is he going to do the same thing this year? Is Trevor Williams the same guy he was before the injury? There's so many questions, and we got to see it on the field. But it's definitely a great battle. But what's not a battle is the guy who stepped up big last year and made the Pro Bowl, even though it was on special teams, but he still made the Pro Bowl, was Adrian Phillips, playing that dime linebacker role. That guy made a huge difference in this defense with stopping the run and stopping the short passes. That guy stepped up huge. This is a guy who's been cut by the team plenty of times and didn't really get much playing time, but once he got put in a role, he took over.
Yeah,
and I think he got a contract this offseason, and I was not happy with it.
Horrible.
I think he earned a lot more money and a lot more years. I think the Chargers put him through the ringer, really made him earn his spot, and he went out there and he did it. And I just thought that the contract he signed was disrespectful to him, and I feel like he earned more money and didn't get it.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's... You can have a little bit of a soft linebacker core when you've got such a strong defensive backfield. As you said, you just play a ton of nickel and get Adrian Phillips on the ground as much as you possibly can, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian Phillips was everywhere, and he was trying to play positions and help in places where, he not necessarily wasn't best suited for. But, he showed that he was able to be productive all over the field when he is put in those positions to succeed. But he absolutely was the heart and soul of that defensive backfield, and I think without him, the Chargers would not have won nearly as many games as they did.
And speaking of special teams, Desmond King, obviously fantastic in special teams. That guy is amazing. And Michael Badgley, who was great kicking, but what's happening at punter?
He's looking like the starter right now, and that from David tells you how interesting this is getting now. If you listen to some Locked On shows, it'd be like, "Ooh, punter, my favorite thing to talk about." And now it's a good conversation. And we were like, "Oh, it's Tyler Newsome. Tyler Newsome. This is his job to lose. It's Tyler Newsome." And now Ty Long is being listed as the starter, and neither punter really did a splashy punt, but they were pretty decent. They're pretty decent distances on the punts, but they weren't really flashy things that you go, oh, he put that in a good spot out of bounds, kept it away from the returner or something. So the battle is still up, but if you look on the depth chart right now, they have Ty Long as the starter, which surprised us because we thought it was definitely Tyler Newsome out of Notre Dame. And we even talked to a guy from Notre Dame that David remembers the name of. What was his name, David?
Zach Nolan.
that came on, and he was talking about how good that guy was, and that we kind of found our own little diamond in the rough in the undrafted free agents. But here comes Ty Long to say, not so fast, my friend.
Either way, though, an undrafted free agent will make the team because he's probably going to be the punter. Either way, there are only two guys that are going for that job right now, but the undrafted free agent success that the Chargers have experienced is going to continue because the punter, more than likely, unless they sign somebody last minute, is going to be an undrafted free agent. So we'll see. It's probably this battle right here. I mean, no joke, is probably going to go down to the very last game. I think they're going to be trading off and going back and forth until the very end. So this is going to be another heated battle.
And Easton Stick is their worst enemy because if he keeps running and picking up these first downs, ain't nobody getting a punt off.
Well, let's look at 2019 then. And, you know, the AFC West has some challenges. Well, mostly the Chiefs. And we can split games with the Chiefs. I think we'd be happy with that. Certainly some tough opponents outside the division, though. I think most of the tough ones are at home. So we've got the Colts, Texans, Steelers, Packers, and Vikings at home. But what are your thoughts 2019? I mean, we're in the conversation. Obviously, we want a Super Bowl if possible, but it's going to be a tough road. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, like I said before, I told you this roster is stacked. Besides the offensive line, that's my biggest concern. If they can get average play out of the offensive line, they're absolutely a Super Bowl contender. I really, truly believe that. I think they have the talent on both sides of the ball and the coaching in place to where they can get there. They have some really tough opponents on this. I mean, the one against the Colts week 1, that's going to be a test right out of the gate. Obviously, you know, AFC West is always going to be interesting. I mean, what the heck is going on in Oakland? I mean, Antonio Brown, are you kidding me, man? You get paid $50 million for the next 3 years, and you're going to sit out over a helmet? I mean, come on. So, yeah, and then the Broncos, you know, turnover at quarterback. What else is new? They've had a carousel there for years, so who knows if they got the right guy. And then, yeah, obviously in the division, the biggest issue is the Chiefs. I mean, they're a great team. They got a great young quarterback. They're scary, obviously. I think they're the biggest obstacle. And then, of course, you know, the real true biggest obstacle is, you know, the big bad brother. And, of course, you already know who that is. That's the New England Patriots. That is public enemy number one. I mean, if you want to get to the Super Bowl, obviously throughout the last several years, last 10, 15 years, maybe even 20 at this point, if you want to get to the Super Bowl, that road goes through New England. So until the Chargers can get past that and slay the dragon, you know, they're not going to get there. And, you know, hey, no matter who you put on the Patriots, they win. It just doesn't matter. I mean, they have the machine and they have the science down. They get it, man. They win games. So until the Chargers get through them, then, you know, they're not going to get where they want to go. So beating the Chiefs and beating the Patriots, that is what the Chargers have to focus on. And I think the offseason moves that they made were indicative of trying to get that mission accomplished.
Well, that's a playoff thing you got to talk about. You're talking about the page. That's a playoff. If you want to get to the playoffs, you got to get through the actual Chargers schedule first. And just to name 2 games right now that I think are going to be the toughest that are not named the Chiefs would be the Packers and the Dolphins. And people are like, the Dolphins, seriously, you think that's a game? We play at Miami. We have not won in Miami since 1981. The Packers, we have only beaten the Packers once in our entire franchise history. So those 2 games right there alone,
amazing, I
think are 2 of the hardest games on this schedule that I can even look at those and say, probably automatic loss.
I was going to say, the Finns always seem to have our number. I got no idea, even when their team looks horrible.
Yeah, I mean, even if the Chargers are, you know, 10-2, you know, the Miami Dolphins are going to be, you know, 4-8 and whatever, and they're going to beat us 37-0. It does not matter. I mean, it's absolutely incredible So hopefully, the Chargers, sometimes they play down to their opponents. Hopefully they don't do that this year. Although the one game that I did not mention that I'm definitely a little worried about is going against the Chicago Bears. Yeah, that is it's going to be a slobber knocker. That one's going to be fun. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also scared to death to go up against that Bears defense. It's going to be a great test and a really, really fun game to watch.
I can't wait for that game, man. I'm going to that game. I've always wanted to see Soldier Field and the icy Chicago weather next to the lakes. I cannot wait for that. But there's also a history with that one, too, because the Bears are 12-4 all time versus the Chargers. So I feel like this NFC North is the team we struggle against.
To round us out, guys, a question I've been asking our guests that we've been having on for our team previews is, if we jump ahead 12 months and we're now looking back at the 2019 season, what do you think the headline would be?
Oh, man, that's a good one. I think the headline for the Chargers, and I'm going to be crazy here, but I think it's, Phillip Rivers Super Bowl window officially closed as they are lifting up the Lombardi Trophy.
Woohoo!
How did I not see that coming? In my head, I was thinking they were going to become a sequel. How did I not see that coming, my friend of like thousands of years? If I had to do it, I'd have to say it's probably going to be something to do with Melvin Gordon or the offensive line. It'd probably be something along the lines of, do the Chargers really need Melvin Gordon, whether they win without him or lose without him? It's going to be, do they really need him? Should they trade him? Do they re-sign him? Like, if Melvin Gordon doesn't play this whole year, his contract moves over to the next year. So then the option can become to trade him. Which do you trade him for draft picks and stuff like that? And I think that could be your headline. And if we lose, it will be Melvin Gordon's contract. What goes into this year? We got to sign the guy and play him. I think that's going to be the headline.
Well, it'll be a fantastic year, guys. Let's hope it's on the positive side of the ledger. There's going to be some exciting games to watch. That Kansas City rivalry is going to be absolutely lit. And we're just, man, playing in Kansas City is brutal, but let's hope we can take the home game off them. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, we'll keep watching the preseason. Hopefully we'll be watching for some synergy across the O-line. Maybe everything will just come together magically and they'll all of a sudden just be in sync. That'd be perfect. But guys, it's been fantastic to chat to you, and thank you so much for your time. People can check you out, as I said, at Locked On Chargers, so on Twitter at Locked On LAC, and the Chargers Domination Live podcast as well. You're doing fantastic work, guys. I love listening to you, and I've been really appreciative of your time.
Hey, man, like I've told you before we started recording, being able to get on and do this with you in Australia, to get my opinion, my voice out there, with your audience on the other side of the world, really has been absolutely one of the highlights of my podcasting career. So thank you for bringing me back for another year. I wanted to include my, podcast partner in John Kegley here with me on this experience. And we hope you invite us back next year. But yeah, it's been great. Hopefully the Chargers have a great season so we can talk about it next year.
Thanks, guys. It's absolutely my pleasure. We'll definitely have you back. And listen, after the Chargers make the Super Bowl, maybe we can chat again. Let's book it in.
Absolutely. If the Chargers win a Super Bowl, or if they make the Super Bowl, we will absolutely make ourselves available, and it will be the funnest podcast of our lives for sure.
Woohoo! Well, there might be a lot of drinking involved, if that's the case.
Without a doubt.
All right, I'm going to let you go, guys, but thank you for your time, and go Chargers.
Go Chargers.
Well, that was our Chargers preview, talking to two of the guys from Locked On Chargers, John and David. It's fantastic to talk Chargers with them. It's going to be an exciting year. Some things to watch there. Some training camp battles and some concerns, and obviously the Melvin Gordon thing. Who knows what direction this goes in. We'll see. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Another team preview in the books and more to come. On behalf of G and myself, thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.